Bodhisattva ancient tree? Sun Er and the rest discovered the ancient tree in the distance while Xiao Yin was feeling stunned. Many exclamations were emitted from their mouths with some shock. This thing, which only existed in legends, was something that even they, from the ancient clans, had only been able to see in some ancient books. What a large tree, the little fairy doctor muttered. Even though they were extremely far from the Bodhisattva ancient tree, they were still able to sense just how enormous it was. Tree shadows spread and covered the ground, giving it the appearance of an ancient monster that stood between the sky and the earth. An extremely old and experienced feeling radiated from it. The members of the Hun clan are likely already there. We should hurry up. Xiao Yin suppressed the fiery heat within his heart. He waved his hand and took the lead to rush toward the ancient tree in the distance. Sun Er and the rest behind him could not be bothered with resting as they quickly followed. Some commotion was once again transmitted from the beast tide behind after Xiao Yan's group moved. A couple of groups charged out in a miserable manner before they landed in this empty area. That is the Bodhisattva ancient tree? These people were still staggering on the ground when they saw the ancient tree that stood between the sky and the earth. A red color suddenly surged into their eyes. This color was reinforced when they saw Xiao Yan's group hurrying over. They were unable to remain still. Even the usually calm Jiufeng frowned. He could not be bothered with resting as he commanded in a deep voice, "Follow them." Understood. The experts from the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe clenched their teeth and nodded when they heard his order. Their bodies rushed forward, and they hurriedly chased after Xiao Yan's group. These people... Xiao Yan coldly laughed in his heart when he heard the sound of rushing wind transmitted from behind. He did not reduce his speed as he lifted his head and looked at the Bodhisattva ancient tree, which was growing larger in his eyes. A faint fear and respect rose from within his heart. No one would be able to remain calm in front of this divine being that had existed for an unknown amount of time. Xiao Yan's group was extremely quick. The tens of thousands of feet of distance was covered within a short few minutes. When Xiao Yan's group was about 1,000 feet away from the Bodhisattva ancient tree, a group of people suddenly appeared in their line of sight. Hunyu. Xiao Yan's group was startled when they saw this group. These people had remained here and waited for the others? Be careful, Xiao Yan softly warned. His speed gradually slowed, after which he slowly landed a short distance behind Hunyu. His eyes swept over the group. Subsequently, he lifted his eyes and looked at the Bodhisattva ancient tree a short distance away. Being this close to the Bodhisattva ancient tree was undoubtedly shocking. It looked like a towering pillar that supported the sky. Its trunk radiated an ancient aura. The branches of the Bodhisattva ancient tree were huge and could cover half of a city. Wave after wave of rich fresh air spread from the ancient tree. This caused the sky to occasionally form many mysterious phenomenons. Sunlight was currently scattering down from the sky. It landed on the ancient tree and gave it a somewhat crystal-clear appearance. A powerful life force that shocked Xiao Yan's group spread over. Xiao Yan's eyes stared intensely at the indescribable Bodhisattva ancient tree. The clear air caused one to feel carefree and untroubled, but he vaguely felt an uneasiness for no reason. This uneasiness originated from Xiao Yan's powerful soul. He wasn't able to detect any immediate danger since the uneasiness that he sensed was extremely obscure. One would not be able to sense it if one did not carefully feel for it. A natural treasure like the Bodhisattva ancient tree can be ranked top 3 across the Do-Chi continent. It would be impossible if it did not radiate any danger. Additionally, if this ancient tree has really survived for a countless number of years, it should have already formed its own consciousness. Xiao Yin revealed an expression of contemplation. If this bodhisattva formed a conscious and trained, it would undoubtedly be one of the most terrifying creatures within the Do-Chi continent. The people here would likely be no match for it. Swoosh! The sound of rushing wind followed close behind while Xiao Yan's group was pondering some thoughts. The Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe and the other few groups hurried over. Finally, they looked at Xiao Yan's and Han Yu's group before slowly landing. Hey, it was extremely difficult to come here. Why has everyone stopped? Jiufeng slowly walked forward and faintly laughed. Xiao Yan glanced at Jiufeng but did not speak. On the other hand, Han Yu, who was in front of them, turned around. His original frown was relaxed as he laughed. Ha ha, everyone is finally here. Since everyone's aim is the Bodhisattva ancient tree, I naturally waited for everyone. Everyone present smiled when they heard his words. Those who were able to arrive were extraordinary people. They had already seen through Han Yu. This person might appear friendly on the surface, but his very bones were filled with a ruthlessness. Those who believed his words had remained in the beast tide. They had been turned into shattered meat before being devoured into the ferocious beasts' stomachs. Han Yu was indifferent when he saw everyone's superficial smiles. A smile still appeared on his face. He pointed to the Bodhisattva ancient tree behind him and said, "This is our aim. Although we have broken through the beast tide, the most difficult thing to deal with is still the Bodhisattva ancient tree." Oh! Everyone's heart shook when they heard his words. Their eyes paused on Han Yu's face. There is a record on a scroll within our Han clan that an ancestor had once come to the Bodhisattva ancient tree. However, contact with him was eventually lost. By the time the experts from my clan had received news, both he and the Bodhisattva ancient tree had completely disappeared. Han Yu laughed. Although I do not know what happened to that ancestor, he most likely died. It is likely that he fell to the hands of the Bodhisattva ancient tree. Additionally, the strength of this ancestor was a Ban Sheng. Ban Sheng? The expressions of Xiao Yan's group changed. Even a Ban Sheng expert had gone missing because of this Bodhisattva ancient tree. Therefore, everyone should not underestimate this Bodhisattva ancient tree. The most dangerous thing during this trip will be that. Han Yu slowly explained. The reason that you are waiting here is because you do not wish to head there alone, right? Gu Qingyang glanced at Han Yun and remarked. Han Yu smiled but did not deny Gu Qingyang's words. He rotated his body and slowly walked toward the enormous Bodhisattva ancient tree. Since everyone had arrived, they would all get to see the mysteries of this Bodhisattva ancient tree. Han Yu was not afraid that the others would not follow because he understood the allure of the Bodhisattva ancient tree. Be careful. Xiao Yan's eyes swept over Han Yu's back and the distant Bodhisattva ancient tree. He softly uttered those words before lifting his leg to follow. Regardless of whether Han Yu was speaking the truth, it was impossible for them to give up so easily after spending so much to reach this place. Everyone nodded, after which they followed Xiao Yan. Dou Qi quietly began to circulate around his body. Jiufeng and the other few groups behind Xiao Yan hesitated for a moment before choosing to follow. Their thoughts were the same as Xiao Yan's. They had spent so much effort to arrive. Gaps formed between the various groups as they traveled across the spacious grassy plains. They adopted a similar pace as they slowly headed toward the towering tree. Young Master Xiao Yan, something is not quite right with the Bodhisattva ancient tree. That clear air, which seems to be filled with life, hides a somewhat dark and chilly miasma. It's filled with many negative emotions similar to those of humans. Qing Lin suddenly spoke with a grave face as the group walked closer to the Bodhisattva ancient tree. Xiao Yan's footsteps momentarily paused when he heard her words. His eyes narrowed. He was naturally unable to sense such a thing. But Qing Lin possessed the triple jade-green snake flower pupils. Hence, Xiao Yan did not doubt her words, and he was able to vaguely sense the uneasy feeling from earlier become more prominent as he approached the Bodhisattva ancient tree. While the caution within Xiao Yan's heart soared, Han Yu's group at the front suddenly halted. They stood quite close to the Bodhisattva ancient tree. The towering, vast, lush, and green tree covered the sky above them. Only after getting this close did Xiao Yan's group gradually feel an extremely obscure chill slowly seep into their bones. Xiao Yan lifted his head. His eyes focused on the enormous Bodhisattva ancient tree. Its tree branches were 1,000 feet in size with a bright cluster near the center. This light cluster looked like a 10-foot large energy heart. A powerful heartbeat was vaguely emitted from the light cluster. Bodhisattva heart. Many eyes gathered on the light cluster that was hidden by the body of the enormous tree. Their hearts violently pounded at this moment. Crash! After the words Bodhisattva heart were emitted from the mouths of some people, the Bodhisattva ancient tree, which had been standing quietly within this grassland, suddenly emitted a crashing sound. Everyone watched as the tree branches twined together before being lowered. These tree branches slowly split apart upon making contact with the ground, and 5 expressionless figures slowly stepped away from them. The very space around them began to fluctuate after these 5 figures stepped forward. A frightening pressure suddenly spread from them. Elite Banshangs. The faces of everyone present became ugly when they sensed this pressure, because they had discovered that these 5 figures were actually all elite Banshangs. Everyone felt their skin become slightly numb when they saw the 5 figures appear in front of the Bodhisattva ancient tree. They would not have imagined that there were Banshang-class experts hidden within this Bodhisattva ancient tree. 5 elite Banshang. There is no life in them. Xiao Yan inhaled a deep breath. He suppressed the shock in his heart. His eyes suddenly swept over the 5 figures before twitching. Nor are their souls present. They are merely puppets. Sun Er softly came to a conclusion. Her face was filled with a seriousness. Puppet. One need not use one's head to know that these elite Banshangs had been turned into puppets by this Bodhisattva ancient tree. Everyone began to feel as though they were covered in a cold sweat when they thought of what happened. Turning an elite Banshang into a puppet, who across the continent possessed the frightening strength to do this. Once one reached the Banshang class, one would be in existence close to the peak of the world. Banshangs were a relatively powerful force even in the ancient clans, but experts of such a level had been captured and turned into puppets. This scene undoubtedly caused everyone present to feel a chill in their hearts. Han Yu's expression had become relatively ugly because of these puppets, especially after his eyes landed on a skinny black-robed elite Banshang. The shock in his eyes had suddenly reached as dense as it could get. Isn't this our missing Banshang ancestor? The one said to have disappeared with the Bodhisattva ancient tree in the old texts of the clan? The faces of everyone involuntarily twitched upon hearing Han Yu's exclamation. Their eyes looked at the black-robed Banshang. At this moment, his face was hollow, and his eyes did not contain the slightest ripple. The figure's skin vaguely showed signs of cracking from being too dry. The puppet did not display any reaction to Han Yu's voice. What should we do now? Gu Qingyang's face was grave. 5 elite Banshangs was a lineup that could only be described with the word horrifying. Even if all of them here were to combine their strength, they would probably still be no match for this lineup, despite their numerical superiority. Xiao Yan frowned. His eyes glanced at the light cluster being emitted from the Bodhisattva ancient tree. The Bodhisattva heart was in front of him. He really did not possess the decisiveness to give it up so easily. We should be able to hold against an elite Banshang if our group join hands. Xiao Yan's eyes glanced at the lineup beside him. Sun Er and Gu Qingyang were all experts at the peak of the Dozun class. Sun Er was on the 8th change while Gu Qingyang was on the 6th change. Adding Xiao Yan, whose strength was comparable to a 6th or 7th change expert, as well as Kai Lin, the little fairy doctor, Yun Yun, Qing Cheng, Gu Hua, Gu Li, and the rest should be able to fight against an elite Banshang. However, there was more than just one elite Banshang here. There were 5 of them. Everyone. Is there anyone who wishes to give up now and leave? From the looks of it, as long as we do not advance further, these Vanishing puppets will not attack. In other words, we still have a chance to retreat now if we wish to. Xiao Yin mused for a moment before turning his head to inquire in a faint voice. Everyone present knit their brows upon hearing Xiao Yan's words. Finally, they shook their heads. Since no one wishes to withdraw, we can only try and engage in an all-out fight. Our side has 7 groups. My group will block one elite Vanishing. The other 4 will be distributed among the rest of you. What do you say? Among the groups that had arrived, there was the Hun clan and the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe besides Xiao Yan's group. Xiao Yan had never met the other 4 groups before, but it was likely that they belonged to some other factions within the Central Plains. Their lineup might not be comparable to Xiao Yin, Hunya, or Jiufeng, but they could not be underestimated. Each of their groups had at least 2 experts who had reached the peak of the Dozun class. We can block one of them. Hunyu glanced at Xiao Yin, but he did not cause any trouble at this moment. He understood that if someone really chose to withdraw, the remaining people would definitely not be able to fight with the 5 elite Vanishings. Leave one of them to us. Jiufeng hesitated for a moment before taking one. These experts might be frightening, but they were only puppets and could not compare to a genuine Vanishing. They should be able to fight these puppets by relying on their large numbers. The remaining 2 Vanishings will be left to the other 4 groups. What do you say? Xiao Yan's eyes jumped between the remaining 4 groups. The strength of any single one of these groups might not be comparable to Xiao Yan's, but it should be possible for 2 groups to deal with one Vanishing puppet alone. The people in the 4 groups looked at each other after hearing Xiao Yan's words, after which they looked at the spot where the Bodhisattva heart was before violently nodding. They were willing to risk it because of the temptation of the Bodhisattva heart. Since no one has any objections, let's attack. Xiao Yan slowly exhaled. His expression became extremely grave. This was the first time he would be fighting an elite Vanishing. Although the fighting strength of this puppet was not comparable to a genuine Vanishing, it was still ultimately an expert who could be considered a Sheng, no matter how one put it. Anything that was even the least bit related to this word could be considered extremely powerful. Xiao Yan slowly took 3 steps forward after his final words sounded. Do Qi whistled from within his body in all directions. A-B. Bang! Those 5 unmoving statue-like puppets' empty eyes suddenly landed on Xiao Yan when he took a 3rd step forward. Their hollow eyes remained watching him as one of them stepped forward with a stiff and unusual gait. It appeared in front of Xiao Yan in a flash. That figure did not speak as a frightening palm shattered space and slammed toward Xiao Yan with lightning-like speed. Xiao Yan stomped his foot on the ground as the Vanishing puppet ferociously attacked. An enormous lava pillar shot out of the ground and violently collided with the puppet. However, the lava pillar, which was strong enough to force an ordinary 9-star Dozun back and cough out blood, only caused that Vanishing's puppet to tremble. The ferocious palm wind continued to slam toward Xiao Yan without any changes. Bang, bang, bang. Over a dozen extremely powerful Doqi pillars suddenly whistled from behind Xiao Yan when the Vanishing puppet's attack was about to strike him. All of them struck the puppet. With the combined attacks of so many people, even an expert who had reached the top of the 9th change of the peak Dozun class would not dare to forcefully receive them all. Yet this Vanishing puppet received the attacks even though its palm attack was shattered. Attack. While Xiao Yan's group was beginning to exchange blows with a Vanishing puppet, Han Yu's group did not delay any longer. They let out a cold cry. Many figures rushed out at the same time and surrounded the Vanishing puppet from the Hun clan. Ancestor, we will help relieve you of your pain. Han Yu looked at the hollow-faced puppet and spoke in a faint voice. After which, he charged forward. There were over 10 extremely powerful Hall of Souls experts swiftly following behind him. Majestic Doqi began to pester that Vanishing puppet. Jiufeng's group and the others also began to act after Xiao Yan's and Han Yu's group did. They unleashed the dou qi within their bodies to the limit, after which they wildly charged forward and encircled the remaining 3 Vanishing puppets in separate areas. In an instant, frightening dou qi spread over this spacious plains. The dou qi was like sharp wind that devastated the surroundings. Although they had an advantage in numbers, not one of them was a genuine Vanishing. Hence, this would undoubtedly be an extremely miserable battle. Bang! Gu Hua and Gu Xing rushed down from the air as dou qi erupted from both of their palms in all directions. Their dou qi violently smashed into the back of that Vanishing puppet, but their incomparably ferocious attack appeared like a rock sinking in the ocean when it landed on the Vanishing puppet. Their bodies shook while a terrifying force followed their arms and surged into them. Grug. With the reflection of such a frightening force, the defenses on both Gu Hua and Gu Xing were instantly destroyed. Their bodies flew back before they were hurriedly received by a couple of flower sect elders. Both parties had already exchanged blows for 20 minutes since they had begun to fight. On Xiao Yan's side, the flower sect elders would momentarily lose their fighting strength if they came into contact with some of the forceful wind from the puppet. Fortunately, Xiao Yan, Gu Qingyang, Sun Er, and the other main pillars of strength were powerful. Hence, they were able to firmly restrain this Vanishing puppet. Attack its head! Xiao Yan cried out loud. The puppet was without life. Other than bursting apart its head, it was basically impossible to stop a puppet. King Kong glass body. Octane blast. A golden glow suddenly surged from Xiao Yan's body when his cry sounded. His body suddenly swelled at this moment. His fist, which seemed to be made of metal, took advantage of when the Vanishing puppet's attention was attracted by Gu Qingyang. He swung his fist into the puppet's head with lightning-like speed. Bang! Xiao Yan's fist, which contained a frightening strength, ruthlessly smashed into the puppet's head. A powerful force shook the Vanishing puppet's head until some cracks formed, but no fresh blood flowed from those cracks. Clearly, these puppets' bodies had dried after a countless number of years of weathering. The Vanishing puppet suddenly turned when the punch hit its head. Its stiff arm was slammed into Xiao Yan's shoulder like a bolt of lightning. Clang! Xiao Yan's body staggered over a dozen steps back after being struck by the Vanishing puppet. Part of his shoulder had even been dented in. However, it was fortunate that his body had become extremely hard after activating the King Kong glass body. There was also the existence of the Insect Emperor cloth and the Dragon Phoenix ancient armor protecting him. These factors helped him to not split out blood and fly backwards. Continue attacking its head. Destroy it. Great silent destruction finger. Sun Er and Gu Qingyang attacked at the same time. Gu Qingyang's face was solemn as his hand seals rapidly changed. 2 enormous energy fingers that carried an annihilation aura suddenly broke through the sky and furiously pressed down on the Vanishing puppet's head with lightning-like speed. Great silent destruction finger. Behind Sun Er and Gu Qingyang, Gu Hua and Gu Xing also unleashed this extremely powerful Tian-class Do skill with pale faces. 2 somewhat dim energy fingers quickly appeared. Bang! Colorful thunderbolts seemed to have gathered in the sky at this moment before striking the Vanishing puppet. The thunderbolt attack was from Kailin. Everyone seemed to have attacked at the same time, as if they had made a tacit agreement. Many frightening attacks simultaneously landed on the Vanishing puppet's head. The body of that Vanishing puppet suddenly trembled as so many frightening attacks accumulated. The head of the puppet, where many crack lines had appeared because of Xiao Yan's attack earlier, emitted a bang and suddenly disappeared. Bang! After being struck by so many frightening and vicious attacks, the head of the Vanishing puppet with its many cracks immediately burst apart. Pale flesh and bones erupted from it. Crack, crack. After its head exploded, The Vanishing puppet slowly stiffened with its hand in the air before an unusual ripple spread from its broken neck. The unusual ripple then turned into nothing as it quickly disappeared. With the disappearance of this energy, the body of the Vanishing puppet suddenly became older at a rate visible to the naked eye. Finally, it transformed into dust that scattered. Who? A golden light surged as Xiao Yan's body quickly shrank. He returned to his original size in the blink of an eye. He wiped off the cold sweat on his forehead and glanced at the situation to his side. With the exception of Xiao Yan and Sun Er, everyone else had sustained some injuries. Even someone as strong as Gu Qingyang had been injured by a palm strike while he had been exchanging blows with the Vanishing puppet. It was fortunate that his dou qi was powerful. Otherwise, he would have sustained a serious injury. This thing was too difficult to deal with. Xiao Yan flicked his finger. Numerous medicinal pills shot out of his storage ring. They were stopped in front of everyone before entering their mouths. Everyone, please rest for a while. I will stand guard. Xiao Yan spoke in a deep voice. No one objected to Xiao Yan's words. All of them swallowed the medicinal pills and quickly sat down. They made full use of this time to quickly enter their training states. They needed to ensure that their dou qi was maintained at peak condition in this place that was filled with danger. Only then would they be able to retain their little lives. Xiao Yan ji, do we need to intervene? Sun Er walked to Xiao Yan's side. Her pretty eyes looked at the other battlegrounds as she softly asked. Those other battlegrounds were not proceeding very smoothly. Even Hall of Souls expert from Han Yu's group had his heart shattered by the Vanishing puppet. He ended up dying, but the strength of that group was still quite high. Thus, they were firmly able to suppress the Vanishing puppet. From the looks of it, victory was only a matter of time. The group from the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe had also suffered some injuries and deaths, but they were not serious and were still within the acceptable region. They had also managed to slow that Vanishing puppet. Compared to them, the last two battles appeared a little too miserable and intense. The four groups had begun an all-out struggle in the face of death. Although their strengths were quite impressive, there was no cooperation between them. Hence, a couple of Dozun experts had died in the hands of the Vanishing puppets. Those four groups had suffered the most serious casualties. It is not necessary. All we need to do is take care of ourselves. Xiao Yan's eyes flickered as he shook his head. It was not the time to show kindness. All of these people were competitors. After they finished off these Vanishing puppets, these people might secretly attack those who had been their allies earlier. Hence, it was best not to be a busybody. If any accidents were to occur and a Vanishing puppet went out of control, it would be too troublesome to deal with the fallout. Xiao Yan had gained an understanding of these so-called Vanishing puppets. Although these puppets were called Vanishing, their true fighting strength was far inferior than a genuine Vanishing. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for Xiao Yan's group to kill it without suffering any casualties. Sun Er nodded. She also understood his logic. If they were to intervene and lend a hand now, these people might end up launching a sneak attack later on. It was not the time to be merciful. Is that the legendary Bodhisattva heart? Xiao Yan once again glanced at the battlegrounds around him, after which his eyes shifted to the Bodhisattva ancient tree. Circular light rays spread from the body of the tree 1,000 feet from the ground. The light was filled with an extremely shocking life force. This Bodhisattva ancient tree is even stranger than I had expected. These Vanishing puppets were definitely genuine Vanishings when they were alive, but even they had ended up becoming puppets. Even they were not able to deal with this Bodhisattva ancient tree. Xiao Yan's eyes stared at the light as these thoughts flew across his heart. These Vanishing puppets were not the things that would give one a headache. Instead, the most troublesome thing was the Bodhisattva ancient tree itself, because no one knew what kind of unusual tricks it hid. Looks like we must be even more careful this time around. Otherwise, we won't obtain the treasure and we might end up losing our lives. Bang! A deep and muffled sound was suddenly emitted from the distance while thoughts were lingering in Xiao Yan's heart. When he turned around, he coincidentally saw the expressionless Hun Yu shatter the head of his ancestor with a punch. Hun Yu deeply exhaled when his punch shattered the head of the Vanishing puppet, after which he lifted his head. His eyes looked at Xiao Yan as a warm and friendly smile quickly surfaced on his originally expressionless face, causing Xiao Yan to coldly smile. Was this person performing a face-changing act? After Hun Yu's group finished off the puppet, he quickly made his group sit down and recover their dou qi. Clearly, they were also exhausted from the big battle earlier. Around 10 minutes after Hun Yu's group was victorious, the Heaven Demon Phoenix Tribe's battle was finally concluded. After killing around 3 Heaven Demon Phoenix experts, the Vanishing puppet's head burst apart after it let an opportunity appear. Damn thing! Jiufeng's expression was gloomy as he ruthlessly kicked the corpse of the puppet away. They had sacrificed 3 powerful Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe elders in order to finish this thing off. This price could not be considered small. Jiufeng inhaled a deep breath of air and suppressed the fury in his heart. He once again calmed down as he waved his hand and told his group to sit on the ground. He swallowed a medicinal pill and quickly began to recover his dou qi. The 3 groups had finished off their Vanishing puppets before the rest, but none of them went to aid the remaining 2 battles. Instead, they chose to simply observe with cold eyes by the side. Clearly, none of them treated the others as true allies. An elite dou zun was forcefully torn into 2 as everyone coldly watched from the side. Blood scattered down and drenched the Vanishing puppet. At the same time, 15 experts, whose eyes had turned a little red, unleashed a powerful wind at almost the same time, and those winds ruthlessly struck the head of the Vanishing puppet. Bang! Against such a number of attacks, the body of the Vanishing puppet shook as its head burst apart. The ripple from the blast struck the dozen-plus experts nearby and caused the blood to churn within their bodies. A mouthful of fresh blood was involuntarily spat out. They had truly suffered a bloody loss in order to kill this Vanishing puppet. After this battle ended, the last battle continued for a couple more minutes before the final Vanishing puppet was eventually killed. The people fighting the last puppet used a method of risking their lives to make an attack, sacrificing 5 people in the process. The last group of people lay weakly on the ground after the Vanishing puppet's head had been blasted apart. They did not even wish to move a finger. Once the final Vanishing puppet was turned into dust, Xiao Yan's group, which had rested for a period of time, slowly opened their eyes. Their auras had nearly fully recovered with the aid of the medicinal pill. Xiao Yan's eyes shifted to the Bodhisattva ancient tree after seeing that everyone in his group had finished recuperating. A moment later, he said, "The subsequent situations will definitely be many times more dangerous. Therefore, I suggest those whose strength has not reached the 6th star of the dou zun class remain here and cease advancing further." Everyone hesitated after hearing Xiao Yan's suggestion. They soon nodded since Vanishing puppets had appeared. No one could know if there were other, even more dangerous trials ahead. If one's strength did not reach the mark, one would be seeking death by heading in. Sect Chief, in that case, we will accompany Yanran and remain here. You should accompany the Junior Pavilion Chief. The few Flower Sect elders looked at each other and spoke. Although they were aware that they were not blessed enough to enjoy the benefits of the ancient tree, they still wished for the Flower Sect to gain something. Currently, Yun was quite strong and she had some sort of relationship with Xiao Yan. If she encountered a wonderful opportunity, she would gain endless benefits. In that case, you should be careful. Yun hesitated for a moment before nodding. She did not have any hope to snatch for a treasure. However, she would feel a little worried in her heart if she allowed Xiao Yan's group to continue on even though she was aware that Xiao Yan was stronger than her. Xiao Yan nodded. After which, His eyes landed on the Bodhisattva ancient tree's large body. The true Bodhisattva heart was definitely hidden inside. "Let's go." Xiao softly exhaled. The pores on his body tensed up at this moment. He waved his hand gently and took the lead to stand up, after which he slowly walked to the Bodhisattva ancient tree. Behind him, Sun Er's group, which had been waiting solemnly, followed him with grave and cautious faces. "We should also get moving." Han Yu's and Jiufeng's group could not remain still after seeing Xiao Yan's group start to approach the tree. They could not bother to rest as they waved their hands and led their people to the Bodhisattva ancient tree. The few fragmented groups further behind also clenched their teeth upon seeing people approach the tree. They forcefully climbed up from the ground. They had already paid a great price in order to come to this far. They were unwilling to simply return empty-handed. The many people hastened their steps because of the temptation of the Bodhisattva ancient tree. As they approached the Bodhisattva ancient tree, everyone's heart once again became anxious. No one knew just what tricks the Bodhisattva ancient tree contained. It was this unknown that caused one to feel terrified. Sha-sha. The soft sound of feet slowly pressing against the ground was heard as everyone gradually reached the bottom of the Bodhisattva ancient tree. They stood below before lifting their heads. Only then did they realize just how enormous this ancient tree, which had survived for an unknown number of years, was. Chi. The moment everyone reached the bottom of the Bodhisattva ancient tree, a bright light suddenly erupted from the body of the tree 1,000 feet above the ground. It turned into a bright pillar that wrapped around Xiao Yan's group. This sudden scene caused everyone's heart to jump. They were just about to unleash their Do Chi when they were shocked to discover that the Do Chi within their bodies had disappeared. Swoosh! The light pillar quickly shrank while everyone was feeling shocked. It emitted a swoosh sound as it pulled back into the tree with lightning-like speed. The group of people, who had reached the bottom of the tree earlier, had vanished at the same time. Xiao Yan's group was naturally included among those who had disappeared. Nailin Yanran continued to stare at the spot where the group had strangely disappeared from. Her face immediately turned pale.